LaRae, what's the easiest way to avoid awkward money conversations with patients later?
By collecting them now as opposed to later.
Oh, yes. I mean, a simple, confident copay collection, like upfront, saves you literally weeks, if not months, of potentially multiple follow-ups, the headache of those unpaid balances. Like, please believe us. We know this.
Yeah, it's crazy, but uncollected $25 copays could be the difference between making payroll and being in the red, between peace and chaos.
Yeah, like we literally witness this all the time. So you have a simple choice to make, like right here up at the top. Collect that money up front or chase it down weeks later. So today we are going to focus on patient portions specifically, collecting them, presenting them, and not letting them stack up in your AR.
Welcome to the Truth Decay Podcast, talking dollars and cents with Sara Baker and LaRae McMullen.
Patients rarely read their insurance plans like fine print. Very rarely, right? Things like copays, co-insurance, deductible, annual maximum, like real talk, it is confusing to us sometimes. And we do this every single day. Sometimes our brains get a little muddy and we have to take a beat and go, hold on a second. To conduct treatment planning, estimating, going through the treatment, right? And not having an in-depth conversation with the patient about those things, but then falling back on like, well, it was your responsibility. It was your coverage. You should have known that. Honestly, it's a little bit crazy. Like, it really is. It's certainly not a good way to go about it if your ultimate goal and intention is to get paid, which I'm presuming is what you want.
That's why it's our job to translate that to the patients, right? If we don't explain it clearly, then the bill becomes a surprise, and surprise always equals resentment and sometimes non-payment. So you have to do the extra work, have those conversations, and try to eliminate those surprises for your patients. And internally, statements can start to stack up. AR is getting higher. The staff is scrambling to keep up with all the questions that are coming into them. Feedback from angry patients. That kind of chaos, it really can kill productivity and morale.
So you absolutely do not want to fall into the pattern where you are not having those conversations and then those patient portions are just getting deeper and deeper into your AR. Your AR ratio is getting higher. Patients are getting louder, right? When you are trying to send those statements. And then you feel pressure to do something, right? Like you see that your cash flow is being affected. Patients are calling. You know that the AR is getting higher. Sometimes the easiest thing to do, which we see often, is just to write it off. They get to a point and they're like, okay, never mind, clean slate, right? This is so common, but like, please don't do that. Please don't do that because there's a better way. You can collect that money.
Sure. And if you don't collect that money on the data service, or at least get a signed financial agreement, at least on those larger ones, right? If your office allows that, you may as well have given that treatment away for free, honestly.
And so many offices give treatment away for free. The best practice is to state that the patient portion will be due on the date of service, literally first thing at the scheduling phone call. Like, even if you don't necessarily think that there could be a patient portion due, if it's just a preventative appointment, you should still have a line. Like, there might be a patient portion due that day. We'll be talking about it when you come in. Even setting the stage like that, explaining the rationale, and treat that like it's part of the whole treatment plan. Like, that is just a fact. It's a part of the system. It's a part of what we do normally. It's a fact, not an option, that you might have a patient portion due.
Yeah, and like Sara just said, don't wait until checkout if you have the option to do it at check-in.
Yeah.
Because the sooner you make that financial conversation a part of the treatment conversation, the better.
It genuinely might not feel like it at first, especially if you are at an office where this is not part of your culture, right? Where asking for patient portions, where you may even feel, your patients might feel like you asking for a patient portion might feel offensive. Sometimes it might feel shocking. What do you mean? Can't you just bill me? Like, I understand that that's a little scary and can feel overwhelming and a little off-putting, but financial transparency, telling patients what to expect, it not only, it builds trust, but also like trust makes people more willing to pay on time, and doctor deserves to get paid for the work that they've done. So even though it might feel weird at first, this is really important.
Offices do tend to be super caring, right? Because they're all about treatment, making sure that the patient feels good and is calm when they're in there. But a financial conversation, it doesn't have to be the opposite of that. It can simply be a part of that process. So when you disguise billing as an afterthought or surprise, you're asking for trouble. Instead, try to normalize that payment as part of the patient care.
Another benefit is clearing your desk, which always feels kind of good, right? Like when patient portion is handled that day, it's sort of like, you know, when you take something out and then you put it away immediately, as opposed to just letting things like stack up on the counter, right? So your AR will stay cleaner and more manageable. And then you can actually focus line item on the accounts that perhaps had larger balances, perhaps had payments coming in that you need to monitor, things that really honestly your attention should be on, as opposed to those $25 copays that you let walk out the door simply because a 30-second conversation wasn't had. Like a lot of times, patients that are not talked to at all about financial arrangements, right? The potential that you might have a patient portion due. And they are kind of disconnected from that concept that, oh, wait, what do you mean? I might owe something. I have insurance. Didn't you bill my insurance, right? Like when they're disconnected from that concept, when you are reaching out to explain to them after the fact, you know, you owe, here's why, they're not even going to call you back because it's just not a part of the process for them to call you back, right? But if you have these conversations and you set the stage and you lay the foundation, you are going to have, you're going to, what we, you know, we've said this before, what we kind of lovingly refer to as training your patients. So they're going to understand, oh, they're reaching out to me. This must be about a balance. This must be about something important, as opposed to, again, like kind of this, well, what do you mean? This isn't my problem. We're kind of in this together because we've talked about it, right? So you're going to have more success at these conversations and patients responding to you if you broach this subject in the beginning. In short, when you treat estimated patient portions as optional, right? When it's not presented like a fact, but when it's presented like it's optional, we're going to bill your insurance, we'll talk to you about this later, that's when all of the payments become optional.
Yeah. Yep. But when you treat them as a non-negotiable part of treatment, that's when patients pay and practices can stay solvent.
Yes. So bottom line, what we're saying is to, regarding patient portions, build the expectation early, communicate about it clearly, collect upfront, or in certain cases, get a commitment, which we'll talk about a little bit. But that's your foundation. That's standard. That's a fact. You got to get that in there.
Yeah, for sure. So let's carry that forward into practical collecting estimated patient portions playbook, right? Because now we're talking about reality and not theory.
So guys, we have 20 steps. It's 20 steps, but we want you to go through these. Listen, we're going to have this available for you on the website and the truthdecaypodcast.com. And so let's go through these. And I want everybody to kind of, this is going to be one of our action steps, is to, after we go through these, like think about them. So step number 1, insurance verification. So regarding patient portions, like you want to have a good faith estimate. In fact, if you're in network, that's a requirement, is to give your patient a good faith estimate. So we've done a podcast about this before. We prefer to use a targeted appointment approach in our system that we offer here. That is going to give you a great way of starting the conversation with your patient about this.
Yeah, so then you'd be moving on. You do that targeted approach as, or a verification as step 1. So steps 2 would be to present that estimated patient portion for the appointment clearly. So break it down by procedure fee, what insurance likely covers, what remains if benefits are applied, and then present that number confidently. And as a very, very important bonus, explain how you got those numbers. Explain the logic of how those numbers were found. We went online, we called and we talked to a rep, et cetera, et cetera.
So speaking of that, use transparent language. When you do all of the things that we just explained, like talk to the patient in a way that is direct and straightforward, but like is understandable. I mean, there's kind of no point in using a whole bunch of jargon or being confusing when like you have good information. Be confident in it. Give it to them. Your plan covers about 80%. That leaves about X amount as your responsibility today. Period. I mean, don't bury it in the fine print. Present it clearly, and in a way that the patient can understand.
Step 3 would be have your patient sign a financial agreement or consent form before the treatment. Confirm that they understand it's just an estimate and they're responsible for anything that might be remaining after the fact. And then, in fact, we know that some offices use electronic documents, but if you are using something paper, we recommend that you write on it, circle that estimate, highlight it, put your initials in it. That way, if you ever have to bring it out again and review it, it's very clear that you and the patient did already go over this.
Step 4, collect the estimated patient portion, ideally at check-in, before the patient is taken back for treatment. Don't assume that they'll pay it later. Not only is it just so much harder, like we've said, to chase the payment down after the fact, like trust us, but also if you have a moment to collect that before the patient is seen, you don't know what it's going to look like after the patient's done, right? You might be checking out a different patient. You might be on the phone. You might be having a conversation. You might be in the bathroom, right? So like if you have an opportunity, really try to schedule it so that you are able to collect that patient portion from the patient before they are taken back for their treatment. And then that way, if something happens at the beginning, you do have another opportunity at the end that you can kind of make a special effort to go do that. But as a rule of thumb, do it beforehand.
And then kind of going along with that, or step 5 would be offer payment flexibility. Accept all common payment methods and offer payment plans or financial agreements for those larger balances. Again, if your doctor allows that, make paying easier than delaying. That way, when you're checking them in and you do that, try to do that money financial part at that very beginning, they don't have something like, oh, I didn't bring my checkbook, or, oh, I don't have cash on me. So make it flexible, being able to pay flexible.
Step 6, and this is related, confirm the appointment ahead of time. So this sounds a little weird, but I would highly recommend including this kind of in your thought process. Confirm 1 week, 1 day, even morning of, if it's a big appointment or if it's a patient maybe that has a history of no showing or whatever, and remind them of what procedures you're having done and that the estimated patient portion either is going to be due or could be due, or what it is if you guys already have a signed treatment plan or whatever, just so they are prepared and they can't walk in and say, oh, I wasn't ready to pay today. Like you need to be able to pay. So that confirmation and the way that you speak to patients about preparing for that appointment is really important in making that collecting easier.
Mm-hmm. And then step 7 would be to train your front desk team to communicate compassionately and clearly. Like we said before, confidence from the team reduces pushback and it can build trust with your patients.
Step 8, provide a walkout receipt or a slip documenting like the procedures, the amount paid, the estimated patient portion, or the pending insurance payment. So you just want to have kind of a record, right? Again, you're building a system and a process that the patients can bank on happening every single time. And so patients appreciate the clarity, right? Like you're just kind of, again, in a very efficient way going over. So this is everything we talked about. This is what you paid today. This is what you had done. Here's the estimated. We're waiting on your insurance. If anything's remaining, we're going to let you know. Easy.
Step 9 is then going to be after that appointment, right? It's going to be after the claim goes out. So once the insurance posts, you want to reconcile those immediately. If insurance pays more, refund or apply a credit. If they pay less, send a clear final statement with the due date immediately, as soon as you do it.
Absolutely. We're getting into the AR now, which is kind of a little bit of our bread and butter, because step 10 is follow up on overdue payments promptly. Do not let bills age out. Send a statement as soon as the final balance is due, and then set reminders. So have a process at 30 days, let's say, then regularly after that with letters, texts, calls, whatever your office does, right? Please have a system, and please do it consistently when it comes to this, because friendly but firm language that backs up what was said when the patient came in for treatment is vital for this. Side note, if you are sending texts specifically, I would recommend, wherever you're listening to this from, check the laws of your state about what kind of opt-in you might need for those text messages. Because I think there are some states, like I think California, you do have to have some like writing on your form that opts the patient in to texts, and then they have the ability to opt out too. So like, just be careful. You don't want to get, caught up on something silly. So check on that.
For sure. Okay, so step 11, review and track your payment metrics monthly. What is your aging AR? Use that data to improve next time.
Step 12, always start the financial conversations early. So, we've mentioned this, but at scheduling the pre-call, right, before they even come in. And again, not just at checkout. So we're not talking about just like the actual collecting, but the conversations, right? Give patients, again, the time to prepare, to ask questions, or arrange financing, again, if it's like a big treatment plan.
Step 13, use clear definitions. Copay versus maximum benefits versus deductible. Make sure that the patients understand the difference before their treatment begins.
Step 14, by virtue of having a PPO insurance, if you're dealing with PPO, that estimate is only an estimate. This is not a guarantee of payment. You need to be super clear with your patient about that upfront. So that needs to be included in that conversation that we're talking about here, like kind of all through it, that we're going to collect this from you today, but this is an estimate. It could change. You could have more, right? Don't say, I can't tell you how many patients we've heard say, but you said I would only have to pay this, or you collected everything from me up front. And they have to understand that what you are collecting today is super important. And if there is a balance remaining for you afterwards, that you'll be getting a final statement, right? Transparency builds goodwill. So you just have to make sure that you have, this doesn't have to be a super long in-depth conversation, but again, set the stage. Have a line that you say every single time that involves that concept.
Step 15 would be, for high balance treatments, consider a financial agreement plan or third-party financing to reduce that sticker shock and increase the acceptance rate of those big treatment plans. You want those big treatment plans, and these patients need them, but sometimes it can be a sticker shock, and then they'll say, "Oh, I'm going to go look for something that's cheaper or whatever," but they still need the treatment, and that's the cost, and most of the time that's the cost. So, consider some type of financial agreement plan that everybody in your office kind of knows.
Step 16, document everything. Signed agreements, emails or messages explaining cost, conversations about balances, on the walkout slips, right? Like, good documentation reduces confusion and disputes. And so even if when you are making your notes about a conversation that you had with your patient, you include a line that says discussed estimated patient portion, right? Collected estimated portion today, patient is aware they might get balance afterwards. If you take the time to type that becomes part of that patient, record. And if, hopefully you never have to use it, but if down the line the patient expresses that they didn't know that this was something that they would have to do, you have those detailed notes to kind of fall back on that can hopefully It's not a gotcha situation, but it's to hopefully kind of, we've had conversations with patients where we go, okay, great, I hear you. So let's go back and check out like how that last conversation went. So I can see here that I have a note from my front desk that they, had a conversation with you about your estimated patient portion, and they mentioned that you might be getting a statement. Do you remember having that conversation? It's just, and that could change. The patient could then kind of acknowledge, oh, well, yeah, maybe I do remember that. Great. How would you like to pay today? So
think of it as kind of like taking like those back office chart notes. You can do the same thing in the front
Yes.
office. Just make those notes in the ledger, not obviously in the patient chart, but I guess it is the patient chart, but not the clinical notes.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the same kind of thing. You want to remember that. You see so many people every day and you want to remember the certain things. So just take those notes. Yep. I love that idea.
Yep.
All right. So step 17, make billing a part of the culture and not a side hustle. Front desk clinical collections. Everyone knows the process and what their role is in that process.
Step 18, communicate value. I kind of wish we had more time to talk about this, but remind patients that this isn't just a bill, right? This isn't independent of the care that they're getting. It's their dental health. It is the care. It's the time. It's the materials. People pay for value when they see it. So it's very helpful to be able to have a full view of what this patient is receiving and not just a money transaction, right? Like you do want the patient to understand that this is part of the care that they're getting, right? And I think that changes the conversation a little bit.
And then step 19, if a patient is uncertain about paying, ask questions. Ask why they're uncertain about it. I mean, maybe not in those words, right? But find out if a payment plan or down payment will help. Flexibility still means accountability.
And finally, step 20, treat patient estimated payment collections like treatment acceptance, right? Like you want all of these things. They're all parts of a whole, and they're all super important. And I think sometimes offices concentrate on certain areas, like just the treatment part, or just the estimate part, or just the insurance part, right? But what we're advocating here is the concept of, again, laying that foundation and having a whole kind of important system and section dedicated to patient portion, understanding that, collecting it, like that's just as important, right? So you have to treat that part of it with the same respect and clarity and professionalism as you do the treatment, as you do the submitting to insurance. Like if you're not doing that, you are missing a huge part of your collections process that is costing you money. And I can say that 100% certainty.
Yeah.
So I know we talked about this a little bit, but some offices are afraid of this concept, I think, like afraid. They will express to us that when we're like, okay, well, we need to, we'll come in and we'll say, well, we need to send statements. And they'll go, oh, well, our patients aren't used to that. Mm-hmm. Used to what? Paying, right? And they're nervous to tell patients to their face that they might owe money. That's not something that they've ever done. But we really want you to believe and understand that vague expectations are more scary. They really, really are.
Sure. If that estimate might be wrong, just say it up front. This is an estimate. Once insurance pays, then we'll reconcile, either refund or send a statement for the balance. Again, can't say this enough. Clarity builds trust.
Yep. And if a patient can't pay that day, by the way, offer financing plans. Offer it. Like, again, we want patients to get this treatment. It's not just about us trying to, pad production and collections. Like, ultimately, we want patients to get the treatment that they need. And we are aware that dentistry is expensive. So we want to try to offer financial plans, payment plans. It's up to you ultimately, but being in on like the admin collection side, I rather see patients pay 100% of their treatment over time versus not having a commitment on that, leaving it open-ended, and then at a certain point, you're wasting time, goodwill erodes, you have to write something off. Like, I would encourage you to be open to being flexible, I think, like you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, of course. And always avoid relying on your memory. Sarah kind of mentioned this earlier, but always use written policies, consent forms, walkout slips, reports, take those notes, whatever you need to do to make sure that that agreement is real. It's not just something that you might have said and then tried to remember about it.
So, LaRae, along those lines, what are 2 action steps that our listeners can do right now?
Okay, so this week, we would suggest that you audit your current billing workflow. For every one of those steps, map out from scheduling to checkout, every step where a patient payment could leak.
And after you do that, rewrite, or write if you don't have one, your patient financial conversation script, right? So think about that. Think about what you tell your patients and like how you tell them, and, about like use simple, clear language when estimating copays and insurance and asking for payment. Make sure, that they understand that it's just an estimate. Make sure not a guarantee of payment, etc.
So Sarah, what are our top takeaways for today?
So number 1, transparent, early communication about patient responsibility builds trust and boosts collections.
Collect what you can upfront at time of service or before, because delayed collection hurts your cash flow and your practice stability.
And offer payment options, clear scripts, and firm follow-up. So that professionalism, that transparency, that dependability on the process is part of that excellent patient experience that we're trying to create. So that's it. There's a lot of information today, but hopefully, again, please go to the truthdecaypodcast.com. Check out our 20-step, audit sheet that we want you to look at when we're talking about patient portion collections. If you like what you heard today, please consider subscribing on whatever platform that you're listening to us on right now. If you have any questions, you can send us an email at hello@thetruthDecayPodcast.com, or come check us out at sddentalsolutions.com. Do a little lookaroo. We'd love to answer questions, address any issues that you might have. If there's a show maybe about hockey that you want to talk about, I can talk about that with you too. Give me a call. I'm happy to do it. That
would be a much longer podcast, I feel like.
It would be so long. Yeah.
All right, guys. You can also find us on LinkedIn, both Sarah, myself, and SD Dental Solutions. We're also on Instagram and Facebook. So any of those platforms you use, come and say hi.
So thank you all again, and we're going to see you in the next episode. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.